Ketchup Titolo. At 58, I didn't expect to feel anything again, until his fingers found the place I no longer believed in. I'm 58 years old, and I thought my body had forgotten how to feel anything beyond routine. Then my daughter's fiancé touched my shoulder during a family dinner, and everything I thought I knew about myself shattered in that single moment. My name is Margaret, and I've lived in Portland, Oregon, for the past 30 years. I'm a high school English teacher, a mother of 2, and until 6 months ago, I believed I was content with the quiet, predictable rhythm of my life. My husband David passed away 4 years ago after a long battle with cancer, and I'd made peace with the idea that romance, desire, and that electric feeling of being truly seen by someone were chapters of my life that had closed forever. I threw myself into my work, into my garden, into being the best mother and grandmother I could be. My daughter Emma is 29, engaged to a wonderful man named Alex, and my son Christopher lives in Seattle with his partner. I thought I had everything figured out. I thought I was fine. But I wasn't fine. I was just numb. It started innocently enough. Emma brought Alex over for Sunday dinner, something we'd been doing every other week since they got engaged 8 months ago. Alex is 32, works in architecture, and has this calm, thoughtful presence that immediately put me at ease when Emma first introduced him. He's nothing like the boys she dated in college. He's mature, considerate, asks thoughtful questions, and genuinely seems to care about our family. David would have loved him. That thought both comforted me and broke my heart every time I saw them together. That particular Sunday in March, Emma was running late from a work emergency. She's a veterinarian and had to handle an emergency surgery. Alex arrived on time with a bottle of wine and offered to help me in the kitchen. We'd been alone together before, but always briefly, always with Emma arriving within minutes. This time she texted saying she'd be at least another hour. And if you're enjoying this story, please hit that subscribe button. These real-life experiences need to be shared, and your support means everything to me. We cooked together, and it felt natural. He chopped vegetables while I prepared the roast, and we talked about architecture, about the house he and Emma were hoping to buy in Beaverton, about his childhood in Austin, Texas. His voice had this quality that made you want to keep listening, deep and warm without being overwhelming. When he laughed at something I said, it reached his eyes in a way that made me feel witty and interesting, feelings I hadn't experienced in years. Then it happened. I was reaching for a serving dish on the top shelf, stretching on my toes, and I felt his hand on my shoulder, steadying me. Just his hand, just my shoulder. But the warmth of his palm through my thin sweater sent a shock through my system that I wasn't prepared for. He reached up easily and got the dish for me, handing it over with a smile, completely unaware that he'd just awakened something in me that I thought had died with David. I thanked him, my voice sounding strange to my own ears, and busied myself with the food. But I could still feel the ghost of his touch, and worse, I wanted to feel it again. Emma arrived flustered and apologetic, and we had dinner like normal. I played the perfect mother, asking about wedding plans, complimenting Emma's new haircut, laughing at Alex's stories about his eccentric coworkers. But underneath the table, my hands were trembling. Every time Alex looked at me, I felt like he could see something I desperately needed to hide. The weeks that followed were torture. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, just loneliness, just a widow's natural response to a kind man's attention. I threw myself into grading papers, into planning my summer garden, into volunteering at the local library. But every Sunday when they came for dinner, I found myself anticipating Alex's arrival with a mixture of dread and desperate hope. I started noticing things I shouldn't notice. The way his hands moved when he talked, the small scar above his left eyebrow, how his shirt stretched across his shoulders when he reached for something, the particular way he pronounced certain words. I memorized details like a teenager with a crush, and I hated myself for it. Please consider subscribing to the channel if this resonates with you. Knowing I'm not alone in these complicated feelings helps more than you can imagine. Then came Emma's birthday in early May. She planned a small party at her apartment in downtown Portland. Just family and a few close friends. I arrived with a homemade cake, wearing a dress I'd bought specifically for the occasion, telling myself it was for Emma, not because Alex would see me in it. The party was lovely. Emma glowed with happiness, surrounded by people who loved her. Alex was the perfect fiancé, attentive and affectionate, his arm always around her waist, kissing her temple, making her laugh. I should have felt only joy for my daughter. Instead, I felt like I was being torn in half. Near the end of the evening, I went out to Emma's small balcony for air. The May evening was cool, and I'd had just enough wine to feel reckless with my own thoughts. I was standing there looking out over the city lights when I heard the door slide open behind me. "Margaret, you okay?" Alex's voice. My heart hammered against my ribs. "Fine," I said, not turning around. Just needed a moment. He came to stand beside me at the railing, not too close. Respectful, as always. "Emma's worried you've been quiet tonight." "Just tired from the school year winding down," I lied. We stood in silence for a moment, and then he said something that changed everything. "You seem sad lately. I hope we haven't done anything to upset you. Emma and we both think the world of you." The kindness in his voice nearly broke me. I turned to look at him, and in the dim light from the apartment, his face was so open, so genuinely concerned, that I couldn't stop the words that came out. "You haven't done anything wrong. You're perfect for her. For Emma. You're exactly what she deserves." "But," he prompted gently. And that's when I made my first terrible mistake. I told him the truth. "But being around you makes me remember what it feels like to be alive, and I hate myself for it." His eyes widened. The air between us became thick with understanding and complication. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then Emma called his name from inside, and he stepped back, his expression unreadable. "Margaret," he said quietly, "I think we should pretend this conversation never happened." He went inside, and I stayed on that balcony for another 10 minutes, wanting to throw myself off it. If you're following along with this story, please subscribe. These raw, honest moments need witnesses, and you're helping me process this by being here. I tried to stay away after that. I canceled 2 Sunday dinners, claiming migraines and end-of-year work obligations. But Emma, worried about me, started showing up at my house unannounced, and Alex came with her. One evening in late May, Emma brought over wedding magazines and fabric samples. Alex settled into David's old chair in the living room, reading while Emma and I spread out on the floor with her wedding planning materials. It was so domestic, so normal, except that I was hyper-aware of every breath Alex took, every page he turned, every time his gaze drifted from his book to watch Emma with that soft expression of love. I wanted someone to look at me like that again. I wanted him to look at me like that. The shame of it was suffocating. Emma fell asleep on the couch around 10, exhausted from a long week at the veterinary clinic. Alex and I were left awake in the lamplight, both pretending to read. Finally, he looked up. "We need to talk about what you said." "No," I said firmly. "We really don't. Margaret, I can't pretend I didn't hear it. And I can't pretend I haven't noticed how uncomfortable you've been." "Then we should just stop these family dinners for a while. I'll make excuses. Emma won't—" "I don't want that," he interrupted, and there was something in his voice that made me look up. His expression was complicated, troubled. "I don't want to lose these evenings with you, with both of you." The emphasis on both should have reassured me. Instead, it felt like a door left deliberately ajar. "Alex," I whispered, "what are we doing?" "I don't know," he admitted, and that honesty was more terrifying than any lie could have been. Emma stirred on the couch, and the moment shattered. They left soon after, and I spent the night staring at my ceiling, wondering how I'd become this person. Subscribe to follow what happens next. I promise you, it only gets more complicated from here. June brought the heat of summer and my temporary escape. The school year ended, and I volunteered for a 2-week teachers' exchange program in San Francisco. I told Emma I needed the professional development opportunity. Really, I needed distance from a situation that was consuming me from the inside out. San Francisco was beautiful, the program was enriching, and for 2 weeks I managed to think about something other than my daughter's fiancé. I walked along the Golden Gate Bridge and reminded myself who I was. Margaret Chen, 58-year-old widow, mother, teacher, woman of integrity. Not this desperate, desire-riddled stranger who'd taken residence in my body. I came home determined to fix this. I would be cordial but distant. I would focus on being Emma's mother, on supporting their wedding, on rebuilding the walls that Alex's kindness had somehow crumbled. Emma picked me up from the Portland airport, bubbling with news. They'd found a house. They wanted me to see it that weekend. Alex's parents were flying in from Austin to meet everyone. The wedding was being moved up to August because they'd found their dream venue with a last-minute cancellation. Everything was accelerating, and I was supposed to smile and be happy. The house viewing was scheduled for Saturday afternoon. It was a beautiful Craftsman in Beaverton, with a wraparound porch and a garden that needed work, but had good bones. Emma rushed through the rooms, already decorating in her mind, while Alex walked more slowly, considering practical matters like the foundation and the roof. I found myself alone with him in what would be his home office. He was measuring the windows, and I was standing uselessly by the door, trying to think of an excuse to leave. "What do you think?" he asked without looking up. "It's perfect for you too." "That's not what I asked." He turned to face me. "What do you think, Margaret?" "Why does my opinion matter?" "Because it does. Because you matter to Emma and to me, and I value what you think about everything." The sincerity in his voice was like a physical touch. I felt tears prick my eyes, and I turned away, pretending to examine the built-in bookshelves. "Margaret." His voice was closer now. I could feel him behind me, not touching, but near enough that I could feel his warmth. "I think about what you said on Emma's balcony. I think about it more than I should." My breath caught. "Don't say that." "Why not? Aren't we past pretending?" I turned, and he was right there, close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes, close enough that I could smell his cologne. "Because you're marrying my daughter. Because this is wrong on every level that matters. Because I'm old enough to be your mother. You're not that much older than me, and age has nothing to do with what I—" He stopped himself, jaw clenching. What? I demanded, my voice barely above a whisper. Before he could answer, we heard Emma's footsteps on the stairs, her voice calling out about the master bedroom. Alex stepped back so quickly it was like he'd been burned, and we left that room without finishing the conversation. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying his words, the ones he'd said, and the ones he'd stopped himself from saying. What was he feeling? Was it just my imagination, my desperate need being projected onto innocent kindness? Or was there something real between us, something dangerous and impossible and absolutely forbidden? Please subscribe if you want to know what happens next. I'm going to need all the support I can get. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a special kind of hell. Emma asked me to go dress shopping with her, to help with seating arrangements, to give input on flowers and music and all the 1,000 details that go into a wedding. And Alex was always there, because they were a unit, because this was their wedding, their future, their life together. I played my part perfectly. I smiled and gave advice, and held Emma when she cried happy tears over a particularly beautiful invitation design. But inside, I was screaming. The worst moment came during a family dinner at a restaurant in downtown Portland, 3 weeks before the wedding. Alex's parents were there, along with Christopher and his partner, Emma's maid of honor, and a few other close family members. I sat at the end of the table, watching Alex's hand rest on Emma's knee, watching him kiss her cheek, watching him be exactly the man she deserved. His father made a toast. To Emma, who brought joy back into our son's life. We've never seen him this happy. Everyone raised their glasses. I raised mine too. And when I met Alex's eyes across the table, I saw something there that made my heart stop. Sadness, longing, regret. Or maybe I saw what I wanted to see. Maybe I was so far gone that I was inventing emotions to justify my own. After dinner, while everyone was saying their goodbyes in the parking lot, I felt a hand on my elbow. Alex leaned in, his voice low enough that only I could hear. We need to talk, really talk, before the wedding. No, I said, pulling away. We really don't. Margaret, please. I can't marry her with this between us. I can't stand next to her at that altar without... Without what? I hissed, aware of Emma laughing with his mother just yards away. Without confessing that you've developed some kind of confused feelings for your middle-aged future mother-in-law? That'll make for a great wedding day story. His face went pale. It's not confused, and you know it's not. Emma called out to him, and he had to go. But his words echoed in my head for days. Subscribe to this channel if you're invested in this story. I need to know I'm not alone in these impossible situations. 1 week before the wedding, Alex texted me. It was the first time he'd contacted me directly, and seeing his name on my phone screen made my hand shake. Please, coffee. Just an hour. We can't leave this unresolved. I should have deleted it, should have blocked his number, should have done anything except what I did, which was text back. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Stumptown Coffee on Division. I barely slept that night. What was I doing? What did I think would happen? But underneath the fear and shame was something else. Hope. Terrible, selfish hope. He was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee. He'd ordered my drink exactly right, medium roast, room for cream, no sugar. The fact that he'd remembered made me want to cry. Thank you for coming, he said as I sat down. This is a mistake. Probably, but I think we're past preventing mistakes. We sat in silence for a moment, and then he said, I can't stop thinking about you. The words hung in the air between us, more real than anything I'd felt in years. Alex, you're marrying my daughter in 7 days. I know, and I love her. I do love her, Margaret. She's wonderful and kind and everything a man should want. But he looked at me, and his eyes were full of an anguish I recognized because I felt it too. But when I'm with you, I feel something I've never felt before. This connection that I can't explain or rationalize. Like you see parts of me that no one else does. Like I'm more myself when I'm near you than I've ever been. That's not fair, I whispered. You can't say these things to me. Why not? Because it's inconvenient? Because it complicates your comfortable narrative about being the good mother who supports her daughter's happiness? His words stung because they were true. You don't understand what you're asking me to feel. Then tell me. Help me understand. And God help me. I did. I told him everything. About the loneliness that had become such a constant companion I'd stopped noticing it. About how his touch on my shoulder that first night had woken something in me I'd thought was dead. About the shame and the desire and the absolute certainty that what I felt was wrong but real, so terribly real. When I finished, we sat in silence. Then Alex reached across the table and took my hand. His thumb traced circles on my palm, and it was the most intimate thing I'd felt in years. What do we do? He asked. If you're still with me, please subscribe. I'm about to tell you the hardest part. Nothing, I said, even as every nerve in my body screamed at the touch of his hand. We do nothing. You marry Emma. You build a life with her. You forget this ever happened. I can't forget you. Then you learn to live with it, like I will. Margaret. No. I pulled my hand away, even though it felt like tearing off my own skin. Listen to me, Alex. Emma is my daughter. She's my child, and she loves you with everything she has. I will not be the person who destroys that. I will not be the woman who steals her daughter's happiness because I'm too selfish and too lonely to control myself. Is that what you think this is? Selfishness? What else could it be? Love, he said simply. I think I'm in love with you. The coffee shop sounds faded. The world narrowed to his face, his words, the impossible truth hanging between us. You can't love me, I said, but my voice broke on the words. You don't even know me. I know you better than you think. I know you're brilliant and funny and that you hide your insecurities behind sarcasm. I know you still wear your wedding ring on a chain around your neck because you're not ready to let David go completely. I know you're terrified of being a burden to your children, so you never ask for help even when you need it. I know your favorite student this year was Marcus, the one who struggled with Shakespeare until you found the right way to reach him. I know you're brave and strong and so beautiful it hurts to look at you sometimes. Tears were streaming down my face. Stop. Why? Because it's true? Because you feel it too? Because even if I do, it doesn't matter. It can't matter. He leaned back, his own eyes wet. So what do? I marry Emma, and we spend the rest of our lives seeing each other at holidays and family dinners, pretending this doesn't exist between us? Yes, I said firmly. That's exactly what we do, because the alternative is destroying someone we both love. And what about us? What about what we feel? We bury it. We lock it away. We sacrifice what we want for what's right. That's not fair. No, I agreed. It's not. But it's the only choice we have. Alex stood up, and for a moment I thought he might leave. Instead, he came around the table and pulled me to my feet. Before I could protest, he wrapped his arms around me, holding me close. I could feel his heart beating, could smell his cologne, could feel the solid warmth of him against me. I need to feel this once, he whispered against my hair. Just once, before I let it go. I should have pushed him away. Instead, I held him back, memorizing the feeling, knowing it was the only time I'd ever allow myself this. When we finally stepped apart, we were both crying. I should go, I said. Margaret, wait. The wedding. I'll be there. I'll smile and cry happy tears and give a beautiful mother of the bride speech. And I'll mean every word of it, because I do want Emma to be happy. I do want you to be good to her. I will be. I swear I will. I know, I said. And then, because I needed him to understand, if you ever hurt her, if you ever make her feel for 1 second that she's not enough for you, I will never forgive you. Do you understand me? I understand. I left the coffee shop without looking back, and for 6 days, I didn't hear from him. Please subscribe if you've made it this far. The ending isn't what you think. The wedding day arrived. It was perfect. Clear August sky, venue decorated beautifully, guests dressed in their finest. Emma looked radiant in her dress, and when she asked me to help her with her veil, her eyes were shining with pure joy. Mom, she said, squeezing my hands, thank you for everything. For raising me to know my worth, for supporting me and Alex, for being the strongest woman I know. I hope I can be half the wife you were to Dad. I held her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, remembering when she was small enough to fit in my arms. You're going to be wonderful, I told her. He's lucky to have you. And as I said it, I meant it. Because regardless of what I felt, regardless of what Alex felt, Emma deserved this happiness. She deserved a marriage built on love and honesty, not haunted by secrets and suppressed desires. The ceremony was beautiful. I sat in the front row and watched my daughter marry the man I cared for in ways I shouldn't. When the officiant asked if anyone had objections, my heart stopped. But of course, no one spoke. Alex said his vows with conviction, promising to love and cherish Emma for the rest of his life. When he kissed her, I looked away. At the reception, I gave my speech. I talked about watching Emma grow up, about her kindness and determination, about how proud David would be to see the woman she'd become. I talked about how Alex had brought light back into her eyes, how they balanced each other perfectly, how their love was evident to everyone who saw them together. And every word was true. But underneath the truth was another truth I could never speak. Near the end of the night, Alex asked me to dance. It was appropriate. The traditional mother-in-law dance. Emma was dancing with Alex's father nearby, glowing with happiness. "Thank you," Alex said quietly as we moved to the music. "For what?" "For being strong enough for both of us." "I didn't have a choice." "Yes, you did. You chose Emma. You chose what was right." "So did you." He pulled back to look at me, and in his eyes I saw the future, years of family dinners and holidays, of watching him and Emma build a life together, of grandchildren that would bind us forever in this complicated tangle of love and loss and sacrifice. "Will it get easier?" he asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "But we'll learn to live with it. We have to." The song ended. Emma came to claim her husband for another dance, and I stepped back into my role as mother, as spectator, as the woman who loved them both in different, impossible ways. That was 3 months ago. Emma and Alex are settled in their house now. They're happy. They're building the life they deserve. And I see them every few weeks, playing my part, being the supportive mother and mother-in-law. It still hurts. Every time I see them together, every time Alex's eyes meet mine across the table with that shared understanding of what we're not saying, it hurts. But I made my choice. We made our choice. Here's what I can't figure out. Was it the right choice? Am I a hero for sacrificing my own happiness for Emma's, or a coward for not being honest about my feelings? Should I have told her the truth and let the chips fall where they may? Or would that have been the ultimate selfishness? And here's the question that keeps me up at night. Does Alex regret marrying her? When he lies next to my daughter in their bed, does he think about what could have been? Or has he truly moved on? Truly committed himself to the life he chose? I don't have answers. I just have this confession, this secret I've been carrying alone for so long. So I'm asking you, the person reading this right now, what would you have done in my place? Would you have told Emma the truth? Would you have asked Alex to call off the wedding? Or would you have done what I did, buried your feelings and lived with the consequences? Please, I need to hear your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel and leave a comment telling me, was I right? Or did I just condemn all 3 of us to a lifetime of pretending? Because I honestly don't know anymore.